Anyways, chat, we got some more news on we got more news on the freaking on Nintendo. When you guys think it couldn't get any worse, apparently it can get worse, apparently. So our good old friend Mutahar has given us the information. Fuck Nintendo. But watch, check this out, chat.
Hello, guys.
Here we go.
Gals, me Mutahar, and you know, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like today is going to be a video where I talk about Nintendo, and you know, I'm always like, man, they cannot defend this, okay? They cannot defend this, okay? The fanboys cannot. And then part of me dies when I realize they absolutely will find a way to defend this. So, ladies and gentlemen,
I didn't do anything, okay?
I read this headline. Nintendo reserves the right to brick your console following unauthorized use. So immediately when I saw this, there was a red flag in my head.
Did you guys hear that, chat? Nintendo can brick your console. So that means if you want to play more Nintendo Switch games, you have to buy another Nintendo Switch.
Okay, that could either be absolutely overblown or it's not. And if I'm making a video about it, there's a good chance, ladies and gentlemen, it is not overblown. So there are 3 big gaming companies out there that make gaming hardware, consoles. You've got Microsoft, you've got Sony,
of course,
you've got Nintendo, and all 3.
Also the Ouya. Don't forget about the Ouya.
These people have absolutely introduced things that I don't agree with on their systems. But today we're looking at an update to something known as an end-user license agreement that, again, is something we all sign when we play video games, buy a piece of hardware, so on and so forth. So Nintendo introduced a few things into this that I'm not a big fan of, okay? So let's cover the lightest thing here, okay? So one of them is the breach and termination and dispute resolution. So dispute resolution is pretty important, okay? To give you an idea about it, what Nintendo has basically said over here is that you are not allowed to do a class action, okay? What you have to do is arbitrate with Nintendo directly on their home turf if you have an issue, okay? Now, obviously, this is not good. Companies absolutely hate class action. Because class actions, much like, you know, the Sony versus like the Sony versus the people, where Sony once introduced a feature called Other OS, they removed it, Sony was sued by a class action, and ultimately all the people that came together with their grievances, right, through the law firms that represented them, law firm that did, they ended up getting like, you know, a few bucks back. But obviously Sony lost a fair bit of money just, again, by doing something that was stupid, which was removing features from an actual system.
Damn.
Now, I would say that most companies absolutely hate when people come together to exert some level of legal force on one of these big monolith agencies. So obviously with Nintendo, they're really not a huge fan of that. And you are not allowed to class action anymore, okay? That is not good by Nintendo standards. So if you want to take Nintendo to court, you better be willing to do it by yourself with your own money against a company that is probably one of the richest corporations in the realm of video gaming, okay? Now, of course, the thing that really sort of like drove me out was the ability for Nintendo to add restrictions to their services and their devices. Okay, so we're gonna read this through, and we're gonna try to understand what goes on. Okay. So according to the license, subject to the terms of agreements, Nintendo grants you a non-exclusive, non-transferable, revocable license to use the Nintendo account services solely for your personal and non-commercial use. Okay, so that is like the account you make to download shit from Nintendo to play like games online and do anything on their online service. Okay, that's pretty standard. Like that's what most online services do.
Of course.
Without limitation, you agree that you may not publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, release, rent, decompile, disassemble, distribute, offer for sale, or create derivative works of any product of the Nintendo account services. B, bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections of the Nintendo service accounts through use of any hardware or software that would cause the Nintendo account services to operate other than in accordance with the documentation that intended use, okay? So I guess hacking on their service, modifying a Nintendo Switch with an exploit that possibly could ruin the experience for other people online, I suppose. C, obtain, install, or use any unauthorized copies of Nintendo account services, or exploit the Nintendo account services in any manner other than use them in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use. So far, it's all got to do with the online service, right? Like, which kind of makes sense. In each case, without Nintendo's written consent or express authorization, so Nintendo doesn't need to. Nintendo don't need your consent, okay? They can just walk in and do what they need to. Or unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law, you acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render the Nintendo account service and or the applicable Nintendo device, the console, permanently unusable in whole or in part. Motherfucker, what is your problem, brother? What is wrong with you?
Oh shit, dude. So they can literally take away your entire console from you. Wow, this is definitely a new low of Nintendo that I've never seen in my entire life, to be honest. I've seen some pretty shitty things, right? But this might be taking it a whole new another level or so, to be honest.
What? All right, we reached to a point, you know, this might be one of the worst console launches that, at least from like a game owner perspective, that I've seen, okay? First off, okay, the game key cart stuff, fine, whatever. You can vote with your wallet and say, I'll just buy the copies of games that are actually completed. You know, I bought a game known as Stalker, like Zone of the
Zone of the Enders?
Stalker, like this Stalker collection on the Switch. And it's all 3 Stalker games, like actually on a game card. Actually, I bought it from a local game store, and you know, they had this Japanese copy in print, and it's an amazing collection. All right, I vote with my wallet. I just buy physical media that actually is respectful. Okay, I don't buy, you know, physical media that is like in part, okay, crippled media, so to speak, right? Like where you put it into the system and it's like, oh my god, here, download this 80 fucking gigabyte game. We could have fit it on the disc, but we just chose not to, okay? You know, Microsoft just did that with that Doom game that's coming out, Dark Ages. Could have fit on the disc, chose not to, okay? Instead, they produced e-waste en masse, and for a company
Whoa. Whoa, are you serious? Holy shit, dude. Wow, that is a scam. Yep. I didn't even knew about this. What? When was this? This happened like 2 days ago. I didn't even hear anything about this. What the fuck? Damn, I feel sorry for Sony. Damn.
Disc chose not to. Okay, instead they produced e-waste en masse. And for a company that like loves to jerk off carbon fucking neutrality, I'm so shocked that they love polluting the environment with this actual goddamn e-waste. But you know what? You can vote with your wallet. Whatever, fine. It is what it is. $80 games. Okay, maybe you don't wait for them to go on sale. Vote with your wallet. Bro, the console can be bricked at their discretion.
Yep.
Is insanity. And then it's like, oh, well, we're going to take away your right to sue. So if you do want to sue them, you can't bundle up with other people and sue the company. You have to go mano a mano with Nintendo legal yourself, which you might as well, okay? Just take a fucking sledgehammer to your balls at this point. That's how effective it is. Now, I'm sure there's going to be the defense, but Muda, I'm not going to hack my system. And then Nintendo won't do anything to me. You know, this actually comes down to a real fundamental answer. Should a company be allowed to destroy the product that you buy?
No.
Because think about it, right? Let's say that the mere act of firing...
Because, number one, right? They're selling you a product, right? And then you buy it yourself. That product becomes yours. You're the legal owner of that product. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do with it. You know, you can sell it, you can smash it, you can, you know, put in a new part in it or something, or you can, like, whatever you want to do, you know? Apparently, Nintendo doesn't even want you to own your own games. Now, they don't even want you to own your own console anymore. Imagine that, Nintendo fans. Honestly, I have no idea who can defend this shit. Nintendo is the worst company I have ever witnessed in my entire fucking life, to be honest.
Bring up a Nintendo Switch meant that you connect to Nintendo online services. Now, let's say that you run custom firmware.
It's not me, dumbass.
Maybe you're interacting with Nintendo online services, whatever, but you're not using it to pirate video games. Maybe you want to run like emulators on your brand new Switch 2 when it's hackable, if it's hackable. And you want to run other things. I'm sure people will say, but what about the pirates, Muda? What about the people hacking in video games? Yeah, they're terrible people, and you know, you can just remove them from accessing the network as a whole, right? Like, much in the way the Xbox 360 would do it, or the PlayStation 3, if you were running a hack, if you were, you know, blatantly being a douchebag, Sony and Microsoft would just remove you from their networks. They would console ban you, but you could still actually use your console to play video games, even though you lost the online functionality. If they were pretty upfront about that, maybe. But the fact that they can say that you brick your system in whole,
because you won't even buy the
not
console.
Just in part, in whole is also mentioned, right? Which means the entire system becomes unusable. That is a question I think people need to ask, okay? Now, I don't think EULA is like...
I haven't done shit.
To be fair, I want to see what an actual court would say if this was tested. But it kind of reminds me, like, you know, should a company be allowed to just take away your game, to take away your system that you paid money for, okay? You know, a while back, all right, actually not even really a long time ago, a car manufacturer by the name of BMW, I'm sure you watching have probably heard of it. They had a subscription service.
I remember this.
To pay a subscription fee to use the actual heated seats in your car. Now,
that was stupid.
You might be like, wow, that's stupid, okay? The heated seats exist. Why do I have to pay a subscription service fee to use heated seats? Now, let's say that there was a BMW hack, right? You could just put it onto a flash drive, stick it into your car, and get access to all of the stuff that you've already paid for without needing BMW's dogshit DRM.
Let me guess. The moment you do that, you can't even activate your car anymore. Now that would be the craziest thing to hear if this is what it's implying, because he's trying to use this analogy with the Nintendo Switch, right? That would be the most stupidest thing I've ever heard from the BMW. I'll be honest with you.
And blocking. Now let's say BMW detected that you did that, right? And they were like, all right, let's just brick this dude's car. Not just deny you from accessing BMW servers for software updates in the future or downloading map updates. No, just straight brick your car. Okay, like, what? Motherfucker, your car cannot start. The car cannot move forward. It is just a bricked machine sitting on your driveway or wherever.
Holy wow, we're going into that day and age or so where companies are trying to brick the shit that you buy. Wow, dude. Wow. See, this is the reason why PC gaming is just way better compared to console, you know?
Should that be okay?
No.
Should a company be allowed to do that?
Nope.
I disagree. I think when you buy a Nintendo Switch, right? If I want to hack my Nintendo Switch and I'm not bothering anybody on the Nintendo Switch online framework, I don't think any company should have the legal right to tell me what I can and cannot do with their fucking device, okay? You can tell me what I can and cannot do with your, you know, online software when I'm interacting with your servers and other players. But I really don't think a company should have the legal right to tell you what you can't do with your system, okay?
Yeah, with the hardware. The hardware is what he's explaining. Ferrari, maybe Lamborghini can take back the car you bought from them. Really? And to think the meaning for bricked is being changed right now. Yeah, but I can play games for ages ago. Fuck all this. To go to the 7 Seas I go. We don't own games on PC. We also screwed. Yeah, I understand completely though. But at the same time, right? At least like Steam doesn't brick your entire computer, you know? That's what I'm trying to refer to as well. But I know that GOG, if I remember correctly, GOG or so, like, make sure that you actually own your games, if I remember correctly. I don't know how GOG works specifically, but
ultimately, it seems like that is the case, which is one of the reasons why, like, you know, I really will always say the Steam Deck is the more superior option over anything Nintendo offers. And, you know, this thing doesn't sit on my desk as a prop. I actually am using it. When you see it on my desk, it means that, you know, I did play a video game on it that day when I was recording. In fact, literally, if I just fire up my actual Switch, you'll probably see like I have Bully running on it, like Bully on the PlayStation 2 emulating on my Steam Deck. This is an unintended feature. Valve made the Steam Deck, but the thing is, Valve does not own the Steam Deck. Valve doesn't own this specific Steam Deck anymore. Valve sold me this, and I can choose to use their operating system, interact with their servers, or I can blow everything off of this and install Windows or my own custom version of Linux. In fact, what Valve didn't intend...
Well, not Ubisoft, but even then, no one cares about Ubisoft anyways.
...with this device was for me to install PCSX2, as I just showed you, run a ROM of Bully, and play it on my device, okay? They did not intend for that, but yet it is my choice. It is my freedom to do that on a device that I purchased. If Valve decided, you know what, we don't like people emulating on the Steam Deck, we're just gonna nuke every device remotely, that would be a serious problem, and I'm sure you would understand why that's a fucking serious problem. What Nintendo is doing, in my opinion, is basically forcing themselves into a part of your life, into a part of your ownership that I don't think they have a legal right to. You know, 10 years ago, one of the videos that I saw floating around was one by Murder of Crows. And I'm glad that I could dig it up recently because he showcases one really disgusting thing. He buys a Nintendo Wii U, and one of the things is when he's firing up his Nintendo Wii U, he basically gets assaulted by the Wii U into a end-user license agreement. So he can't literally say, I cancel, I don't agree to that. He has to click the OK button, which takes him to this page where the only option he has is to agree, okay? Now, remember, he bought the system, he probably bought a game or two, and he just wants to play his video games. Now, according to this EULA, you could refund the console, like just send it back to Nintendo and they'd give you the whole refund, which, you know, you could avoid, you know, absolutely signing this. But again, all right, even when he tries to quick launch a video game, it doesn't work. Nintendo has forced this EULA onto him, right? And I don't think any company should just be allowed to do that. When you buy their hardware, when you buy their video game, I really do personally believe that at that point, they really shouldn't have any control over what the fuck you do with your system unless you're connecting it to the online and interacting with their servers in real time or other players, right? That's all obvious, like, demarcation point we all can agree on. But yeah, I saw this floating around and I thought it was probably one of the most disgusting things that Nintendo has done in recent times. And again, it's not the only disgusting thing that Nintendo has even done. You know, just a quick reminder, Nintendo, when it comes to their competition, the indie game scene even, right? Pokemon is one of the largest fucking media brands in the world. And literally, you know, they are actually going after, you know, people who are making better versions, better similar products to their own, right? So Palworld, for anybody that doesn't remember, I talked about their lawsuit that was happening, but recently they actually said a few new things, right? So they said they'd like to express their sincere gratitude, which obviously we understand. The litigation is ongoing. So they remain involved in prolonged legal proceedings regarding alleged patent infringement. So on November 30th, they introduced a patch for the game, and that removed the ability to summon pals by throwing the pal spheres, which was, I guess, the Pokeball analog. And you
can probably mod that back in, probably.
They changed it to a static summon next to the player. But next, they also said, we regret to inform our players that with the implementation of patch 0.5.5, they have to make another compromise. And what's that compromise? From that patch, gliding will be performed using a glider rather than with pals. Pals in the player's team will still provide passive buffs to gliding. So remember the whole thing where like you can just get on top of your flying pal and just fly around the map?
Oh yeah.
Well,
they are trying to bleed, you know, Pocket Pal or so all of their money. That's basically what's happening. Hey King.
Like Nintendo has, I guess, the patent to that game mechanic, and other gamers cannot use mounts.
That's such a stupid
in a 3D
thing.
Environment. At all.
That's such a dumbass thing.
Like that is against the against Nintendo's kosher beliefs, right? You have to absolutely you know, remove your gameplay feature so Nintendo can be appeased. And the thing about this is super baffling because, like, if we're...
Oh, yeah, no, for a fact. But at the end of the day, for me personally, like, I don't really care about Nintendo at the end of the day. Fuck Nintendo, dude. I could care less about Nintendo. I'd rather go buy me a Nintendo Switch OLED from a third-party marketplace and not give any money towards Nintendo because Nintendo does not deserve my money, and I can do whatever the fuck I want with the Nintendo Switch anyways.
if we're gonna really be honest, like mounting an animal, I guess in this case is more like mounting a Pokemon that you've captured or like a monster you've captured. Mounting creatures is something that I've seen in other games like World of Warcraft even, right?
Yep.
Other actual features, other actual games
Yep.
rather, where I've seen this feature set play out. But to see Nintendo be so litigious about it is actually insane, especially against a company that literally is, by their own comparisons, an independent company. And sure, we can say that Palworld is very deceptively close to Pokemon, but it's not, okay? It's still a parody product. And to see Nintendo be so hard about this instead of actually creating a video game that can rival Palworld in terms of how much it resonates with the, you know, fan base, I think that's the most telling thing right now.
Nintendo.
But you know what? Honestly, I wish I could be shocked, but I'm not. You know, Nintendo has done a lot of bad shit, but I really do think the ability for them to, I guess now, destroy your system, okay? Because that's what it seems like from reading this. And I know that people will say, but what if it doesn't happen? It's not what if it doesn't happen. It's what if it can happen.
Yep.
Which it seems, according to reading all of this legalese and everybody else, you know, already looking at this as well too, it seems like Nintendo has an even further grip on what you can.
It's not even worth getting a Switch 2.
Now, if you want to contest,
it's not even worth it.
The easiest route, and I'll always say this, is vote with your.
If people in my comment sections are still buying a Nintendo Switch 2, I'm sorry, but you lose all respect from me. Case and shut, you lose all respect from me after learning this.
Your wallet, right? Don't get a Switch 2. You know, maybe just get the Steam Deck, okay? You know, a lot of those big games that are coming out on the actual Switch, you know, games like Super Mario Kart or Mario World Kart.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that
pretty
might be
much
the one exclusive, but generally speaking, the only game that I would be interested for on the Switch 2 would be Cyberpunk 2077. A game that I have a DRM-free copy of from GOG that I've also just installed onto my Steam Deck. And sure, it might not run as pretty as the actual Switch 2, but this system is here in the now. And it actually is respectful, comparing itself to the actual...
No more
Nintendo
cookies
Switch.
for the YouTube frogs.
But hey, that's just where my thoughts are.
Let's bring back PSP. Hell yeah, dude.
Again, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.
Dude, that is the most craziest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life, to be honest.
Hello, guys and gals.
I still cannot believe it, dude. They can brick your console. Man, I'll just buy a Nintendo Switch OLED, to be honest, at this point. You know? An OLED. I might as well just give me an OLED and I'll be satisfied with that. Ay, chat. I have the PSP and the PS Vita, so yeah. Anyways. Yeah, honestly, I just keep hearing more disappointing and more shittier news about Nintendo Switch 2 and why you should not be buying the Nintendo Switch 2. And if you're buying the Nintendo Switch 2, what are you doing, dog? What are you doing? Honestly, what's wrong with you? You're a weirdo, you know? Case and shut, to be honest. If you actually care about getting this Nintendo Switch 2, it's like, oh, but my friends are getting it. It's like, and what? And what? So what? You're gonna pay them for good practices like this? They can break your console. You wanna pay $90 to $80 for video games? You know? Pathetic. Honestly, pathetic. So yeah. Oh, I don't care about Mario Kart anyway. So when we'll take accountability for this, code? You will take accountability for this. Yeah, I gotta say bye-bye to the YouTube frogs, of course. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. You guys could comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy, jazzy stuff. Yeah, honestly, I'm okay. I'd rather go get me a Steam Deck at the end of the day, or an ROG Ally, you know. Any of the other handheld consoles compared to that. Hey, even I'd rather get me one of those like one of those fan-made like consoles or so, those handheld consoles that plays like emulator games. I'd rather get me one of those instead, in my personal opinion, than pay than pay whatever this is. But hey, you know what? It is what it is at the end of the day. Nintendo's niche was being the affordable console. Such a shame. They abandoned that philosophy. Yeah, no, they abandoned that philosophy a while ago. Me, I'm not the villain who see the gaming world set on fire like you did. No, but your mom did though. Anyways, yeah, that's the end of the video. And don't buy a Nintendo Switch 2 or I'll be very disappointed in you. So yeah, anyways, end of the video. And peace.